This week on Now Here with Chris and Kell.
I don't know who his brother is, but he said he's gonna send him out and with a panga and try to pull it.
Got some time to kill, so I'm gonna go check out a Harry Potter restaurant in the middle of Acapulco. It's supposed to be pretty cool. Here it is. This place is a little on the small side. They don't have any tables right now, so I'm just gonna hanging out, waiting for a seat.
And while Chris hangs out, he peruses the thoughtfully themed menu and all the Potter paraphernalia throughout the place.
She said we could go look upstairs.
Okay, a little weird, more Harry Potter memorabilia, but also just people trying to enjoy their dining experience.
Gracias. That's pretty cool. They did a good job with this place. It's not very big, but it's impressive.
After a short wait, Chris finally scored a seat at the big kids table. And at the end of the table, the sweets trolley was parked. The Honeydukes Express had chocolate frogs and Bertie Bott's every flavor beans on display. Sticking with the classics, Chris orders a butterbeer.
It's here. Butterscotchy. Gracias. Ooh, it's hot to get out here. I was in there a long time. Holy cow. That's quite a place. The butterbeer was actually quite good. There's still some on my nose. Walking out of there with white goo on my nose. Dude, they were super nice in there. The food was good. The butterbeer was quite tasty. It was like a smoothie with this butterscotch flavor and weird foam on top. If you're in town and you like Harry Potter, you will not be disappointed by stopping by that place. They didn't do that half-assed. It was really well done. Kelly, we're doing the cliff divers tonight.
I was certainly excited about this. If you don't know, the Cliff Divers of La Quebrada has been one of the most famous tourist attractions of Acapulco since the mid-1930s and remains a spectacle to this day. So after I was done with work for the day, Chris picked me up for a night on the town to see the show.
Heading into town, I'm gonna go see some cliff diver show.
Chris drives us over to the floating dock and then ties us off and makes sure everything is secure before we go on walkabout. This is one of those real boat life things that is very unlike normal land life. Instead of just locking up your parked car and walking away, we have to tie our car up to someone else's car, hope that car doesn't need to go anywhere, and we also need to make sure that our cars don't turn into bumper cars while we're gone, so Chris puts out these expensive balloons, known as fenders, as a buffer. And then we cross our fingers that our car, or the engine/outboard, doesn't get ripped off while we're gone. We walked towards La Quebrada, and while it was a relatively short walk uphill, darkness fell pretty quickly. Which was great because while there are shows during the day, we had heard the night shows were much more exciting. At the top of the viewing area were vendors selling goods. There's a public viewing area that accepts donations for each show, but we opted for a different experience, and that was to have drinks at the famous hotel Mirador. Famous icons such as Frank Sinatra, President John F. Kennedy, and Elizabeth Taylor have stayed here. This way, we could enjoy a few drinks with a private seated balcony view. However, of course, there was a fee for that. Once we paid up, we headed down the windy staircase to the viewing balcony where there was an homage to the history of the cliff divers and all of the celebrities who've had the same experience we're about to enjoy.
We made it. We got a table.
We did.
With an excellent view.
I'm gonna try this Vampiro. I haven't had one before. They're gonna be crazy, so am I, Kelly.
Yep, this is how crazy we get.
I'm gonna freaking do it.
There was plenty to stare at here while we waited for our drinks and the show to begin. These walls were filled with all types of famous. Front and center was the iconic Elizabeth Taylor. Signatures from all these visitors throughout the years plastered the walls. We spotted Bob Hope and Roy Rogers, to name a few. And now our drinks have arrived.
Vampiro. My first ever. It's good. Like, I could drink these.
It was in this moment that Chris discovered his new favorite thing in Mexico. Now that we had our drinks, we watched with lumps in our throats as these crazy dudes below, who started out on the pier, swam across the ravine and started scaling the cliffside without any kind of harness or safety gear whatsoever. And then we stared with anticipation, waiting for them to dive. Oh my god! Oh my god! Then, to make things even more exciting, they killed the lights. And the torches were lit. After the show was over, we headed back home. It was a really cool show, but the diving event was surprisingly short. This time, in lieu of walking in the dark, we opted to take the bus, because the buses here are quite the experience. Good news, our dinghy, Paul, was right where we left him, partying it up with this fun boat. Now just have to get on the dinghy, no problem.
Back at the dink. This is quite an exciting little setup that we have to deal with. Also, you know, when's the last time we were anywhere and we stayed out till 10 o'clock at night 2 nights in a row?
I can't think of a time. I think back when we lived in Portland.
Yeah, that definitely happened then. But like just as cruisers, definitely not.
Yeah, cruisers midnight is real.
Cruisers are typically awake at dawn and head to bed at a corresponding early hour. The expression cruisers midnight is a familiar term for us, meaning around 8 or 9 p.m. So staying out past 10 o'clock is kind of a big deal.
Take me home, Kelly, or lose me forever. Ready? Are we free?
We're free.
Okay, cool. And with that, I bid you buenas noches. Hasta mañana.
Our time in Acapulco was sadly coming to an end, which means the following mañana we would go check out with the port captain. For whatever reason, we always seem to get hung up in this process. Curious what weird glitch will snag us this time? I'll tell you. Apparently, you have to file the paperwork for departure 24 hours before actually departing. And since we weren't leaving for 2 days, we had to come back.
Well, we got mostly checked out. We filled out all our paperwork ahead of time, but what?
We definitely did not fill out the paperwork ahead of time.
Yeah, all she has to do is stamp it, she said.
Well, I mean, we filled out the paperwork for tomorrow, and then she'll come back and stamp it and let us go on Thursday.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took me like 5 tries to fill that out, because if you have to scratch anything out, they make you start over, which makes sense if you really think about it. At first you're like, come on, like what's the big deal? But then if you could just scratch something out and write something new in on an official document, that's not good.
Makes sense. Anyway, we gotta come back tomorrow.
Every place I've gone before this, they take that document though and they type it up, and then you assign an official one that has like everything typed into place.
Oh, well that's a good system.
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
Well, since it's a work day for me, we decided to find a cafe to post up and be productive, which meant hopping on a bus and then heading someplace with reliable internet.
I know the layout, so I know what to do.
Yeah, I know this seems incredibly lame of us, but sometimes Starbucks is where it's at. Clearly, loads of others had the same idea. Where else are you going to get reliable Wi-Fi by purchasing a decent cup of coffee and being able to hang out for multiple hours during the workday? After the clock hit 5, we headed back to the boat, which was seemingly safe and secure, tied up to our mooring. As the sun went down and night crept in, so did something else. A rather large chunk of Hurricane Otis aftermath was slowly drifting towards us.
We're being attacked.
By a
I don't know where this chunk of shit came from, but we should probably call Vicente and let him know, huh?
Yeah.
Like it's getting scary close to us.
Okay.
So I made the call to Vicente, the guy who hooked us up with the mooring ball, and
I don't know who his brother is, but he said he's gonna send him out and with a panga and try to pull it.
There's a cleat right there that you could like hook a rope to and pull it.
Okay.
there was a whole mess of rebar sticking out of this giant concrete death trap, and all we could do until help arrived was try to fend it off with our boat hook.
Come to Acapulco, get a mooring ball and a swim platform.
Yeah, it comes with every mooring ball.
Wow.
The only thing I'm worried about right now is I think his mooring ball is holding it away from our boat.
Yeah.
But our dock line is trapped underneath that piece, and I don't want it to like...
Oh, it's chafing maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cut the rope.
As this giant piece of dock started wrapping itself around our mooring, we couldn't help but wonder how often this happened, and how we could have possibly prevented this situation.
It seems to be stuck in the middle. We're screwed.
Soon, some help arrived, and we assumed the plan was to pull the big dock away and secure it to a separate mooring to eliminate another attack. But we were having some massive communication issues due to the wind and our language barrier.
All we need to do is pull this off. You have a rope?
He did not in fact have a rope, and his plan was to just move us to a different mooring ball, and leave this floating death trap dock wrapped around this mooring. However, that was not okay with us. Without this hunk of disaster being secured to something solid, we felt that this would leave us vulnerable to another attack, regardless of which mooring we moved to. After trying to explain what we wanted and not really getting our goal across,
Okay, you stay here.
Chris took matters into his own hands. Chris jumps into our dinghy and attempts to tow the dock away, but he has to be very careful because there's sharp rebar sticking out all over this thing, and popping our inflatable dinghy is not an option.
Not yet!
Tell me when I need to stop.
Keep going!
Surprisingly, with our mighty little dinghy Paul, Chris made some progress, and we were inching our way out of danger. Dragging this thing was also super taxing on our outboard, so Chris had to give it lots of breaks during this process. The extra help we had, while appreciated, wasn't super helpful. He kept saying his outboard wasn't powerful enough.
It looks clear!
Now that we're in the clear, we wanted to call the Navy and get this taken and secured, but according to Vicente, they wouldn't have done anything, so adrift it goes. We were concerned all night by the possibility that this beast would return. The imminent danger had passed. Now let's go down below for something completely different.
We now bring you dinner.
Yes, I am the hero for two reasons. One, me and Paul lugged a huge piece of concrete, 15 feet.
Yeah.
And secondly, I made some dinner. What you have here, Kelly, is a bed of farro with a piece of grilled romaine on top, some steak cooked medium, and a delicious Dijon balsamic cream sauce with grilled onions on top. I was gonna put some tomatoes on it, but wow, it was a bummer because I wanted that bright element.
Speaking of bright elements,
Heading in to see the port captain again to grab our departure papers. We plan on leaving first thing in the morning. There is a cruise ship in the harbor, and I don't recognize what cruise line it's with, but it is definitely here. And I didn't think any came to Acapulco recently because of the hurricane and like just kind of the unrest that they've had here. But probably good to see that they're back. I have found no reason to not come to Acapulco, actually quite the opposite. It's a pretty cool stop and it's better than I expected. Anyway, I came this way to find a bank and now I'm looking for some grub.
Chris did make it to the port captain and got us all checked out, but that was pretty boring and you saw our first attempt already. Now he's on a mission to find some chicken for lunch. He ducked into this market with low expectations and no reservations.
It's amazing something that ugly could be that delicious. Maybe I'll get a whole chicken somewhere. Depends on what grabs me when I walk by. Jesus. One step closer, electrolytes. Now we just gotta find some food to go with it. I think we found a winner. Yeah, that was good. Un pollo entero, por favor.
Un pollo 200.
Okay. Gracias. While I was walking back, I thought I'd come check out this fort. I swear, man, chicken's not street food. I've been walking around with sticky fingers since I left the market. Needs a little beer.
Smart. Let's not leave any beer wasted.
Times like these, I wish I had really long socks. I have nothing. What a shit show. Anyway, let's go check out the fort.
This is the fort that Chris is referring to, and while I can't seem to drag him into a museum to save my life, he's now suddenly inspired to check out this gem without me. Probably because it's a fortress, and what boy isn't obsessed with big guns and cannons? He's also incredibly desperate to wash his chickeny beer hands at this point. Mission accomplished. Now let's go see some stuff.
Better watch yourself, cruise ship. I don't care how fancy you are. There's cannons pointed at you. Just one small hole below the waterline. Yeah. Well, wasn't that educational and fun? And almost half the exhibits were open. Well, I guess we should head back to the boat. We have some things to do to prepare for our departure tomorrow. Goodbye, Museo Histórico de Acapulco.
A few moments later.
Oh, I heard this place was cool.
Really? You're going to another museum without me?
It will have to remain rumor. My, was that educational?
Haha. Okay, you're heading home now?
Back amongst the pangas. Oh. Well, I am back from all that adventure, and Kelly's here, and she hasn't even put any pants on yet.
Hey, when you work remote from a hot-ass boat all day in the Mexican sun, do you really need to wear pants? The next morning, Vicente's brother came out to help us depart by untying us from our mooring.
Ready, babe?
Just about.
Okay.
We were free and clear now, and ready to head out of the bay, on to our next destination.
Adios!
And on our way out of the bay, I stood on the bow and scouted for hurricane debris, while Chris manned the helm. It was an overcast morning, which gave us some relief from the hot sun we'd been experiencing. After we got completely out of the bay, we raised the sails and started making our way further south. Well, that's it for now. Be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already, and see where we end up next week and how we get there.
Oh man, this passage has been one for the books. Probably the worst we've ever had. The seas are confused. We got wind right in our face, so we're bashing into it. We've gone through squalls.
Yep, not gonna sugarcoat it. This passage would be one hell of a ride, and not in a good way. Keep watching for this week's blooper reel, sponsored by our patrons.
Butterscotch. That's what you do in Acapulco. Everything's covered in white goo. When I left, there was a bit of butterbeer on the bridge of my nose. It was real cute. Let's see if your phone can clip dive.
Not cool.
I wonder if this will keep things cold. Goodbye, Fort de Santiago. That means Whale's Vagina. Chris out.